Hi guys, SkyPoint here. Just wanted to make a video to talk about some of the changes which have hit the game today. And the first of those is something which was unexpected. There's been a change to Kabanda. Let's take a look at this. So, Kabanda looks pretty much the same, except you'll now notice that he has this phrase, General of Khorne. And so for a long time, a lot of people have kind of complained that Kabanda is cool and everything, except he doesn't have a reckoning like the other Primarch factions tend to have. And in fact, Kabanda is the only non-neutral legendary warlord who does not have a reckoning. So the devs have changed that. If we were to scroll down, you now see that there's a card in the game called, and I don't know why it shows up twice over here, General of Khorne. So it says over here, it's a whisper. Your warlord becomes General of Khorne, -1 cost when your warlord attacks an enemy troop. So theoretically, Kabanda can play this during his 6th turn. Well, no, it won't work in his 6th turn because of the energy cost going down to 10. But he should be able to play this around turn 8 or 9 pretty easily, which is around the time that most of the reckonings, or at least the early game reckonings or whispers, start to get played. And so what is General of Khorne, and is it worth transforming into? Well, as with Whispers, you're probably going to get your 8 health healed, so that's worth it for that alone. So looking at him now, it looks as though not much has changed. What's going to happen now is his attack is always 3, not just during his turn. So it's going to be a little bit harder to damage Kabanda. He still has Unstoppable, he still has Berserk, but now he gains an energy ability. For 2 energy, you can put in play 2 Bloodletters. Honestly, as far as energy abilities go, this one is a little bit slow, because you can put them in play this turn, but they won't do anything until the next turn. So it helps you to build a board presence, but once you put them on the board, you can't take another action. So it's interesting. It sort of makes him, ironically, slightly less aggressive. I guess becoming the General of Khorne means he's more about putting troops and stuff and directing them than actually attacking. But of course, there's various effects in the game which can cause damage to your own troops. And when you've got 2 Bloodletters in play, that might actually start buffing some of your other forces quite a lot. So it's an interesting play. I think it's going to make Kabanda even more popular. One thing which was holding him back was the lack of a reckoning. So yeah, that's an interesting little balance pass they did. So what else is new? Well, of course, we have the new counterattack card. So I'm going to be running through every faction in the game and showing the counterattacks and talking about them. Let's start with the neutral faction. So we're going to begin with the Imperial Army, and if their counterattack shows up down at the very end, and what it says is you put in play a 1/1 armsman with flank and front line. So this is what the 1/1 armsman looks like. Well, he's got flank. He's got Frank. Maybe that's his name, Frank. He has flank and front line. It's an alright ability, honestly, compared to some of the others we saw in the previews. Perhaps a little bit weak, because essentially what it allows you to do is do 1 point of damage to an enemy troop, or try to protect your warlord a little bit for 1 turn. So I rate this as being probably a little bit below average as far as counterattacks are concerned. But honestly, the Imperial Army are a neutral faction, so they're probably never going to get any of the best cards from this. Next up, we have the Mechanicum, and their counterattack's a little bit more interesting. Refill 1 energy. So that's a mechanic we already see on some of the Mechanicum warlords. And what this is going to let you do is actually just get more cards into play. Watch out that you don't play too many and end up with nothing in your hand. But I think this is a nice little counterattack. Frankly, anything which lets you spend more energy in a turn is great at giving you an advantage. And so I think as far as the neutrals are concerned, the Mechanicum are getting a better counterattack than Imperial Army. Now Chaos have an interesting counterattack if we look at it over here. Lower the cost of a random card in your hand by 1. So I guess this is thematic, you know, the will of the Chaos Gods can be very fickle. It ends up having a similar effect to the Mechanicum counterattack, just with less control over what happens. But if you're lucky, so if the Chaos Gods favor you, it might actually allow you to play a card which costs so much energy that you normally wouldn't be able to play it this turn. For example, with the Mechanicum counterattack, refilling 1 energy will never allow you to play a 3 energy card in your first turn. Whereas with Chaos, if you're lucky, that can happen. So I like this as well. I think this is probably the strongest of the neutral counterattack cards. Alright, now let's start running through the factions. Let's go ahead with the Loyalists first. So we start with Iron Hands. So going down there, their counterattack, give shield to your Warlord. So that's a little bit interesting because shield, I guess, helps most Warlords in some form, but in general, the Iron Hands don't have Warlords who tend to attack directly, so that shield is very, very defensive, and you'll be trying to use that to just stave off a little bit of damage, which is precisely what you want to balance going second. So every one of their Warlords can benefit from that defensively. Amadeus Duquesne is usually trying to gain front line to protect his troops. A shield is going to help him do that better. Ferrus Manus is hopefully trying to buff his troops, and so again the shield will make him a little bit less attractive to attack. Gabriel Santar is probably going to be trying to use his energy abilities, so again not attacking directly himself, so that shield will be protective. And Shadrach is similarly giving buffing his troops with sneak attack, and so again that shield is going to help stave off a couple points of damage. So I think it's a great ability. I like it there. Salamanders are up. Their counterattack is a little bit weak. I mean, it's heal 1 to all your units. So in a best case scenario where you have a full board on the board and everyone is damaged, this is one of the best cards in the game because for 0 energy, you can heal a total of 7 points of damage. In early game, it's not quite so good. I mean, yeah, you can heal your Warlord with this, basically, as well as perhaps a troop you have on the board. I don't know, like, I just feel... You know, actually, no, now that I think about it, this is probably not one of the cards you want to play during your very first turn. You're going to sit on this until mid-game when you've got a little bit of a board presence and the enemy's chipping away at it. And that's when you'll play your counterattack and stall him a little bit longer. So as long as you're not being dominated and you're not losing board control, this is a good card. Raven Guard is up next, and this is a little bit surprising. Their counterattack is a stun, and it's a little bit, and I say it's surprising because stunning is not a mechanic you normally associate with the Raven Guard. I would have thought it would be something to do with gaining stealth temporarily for a turn or whatever, but stunning is pretty good. It buys you a little bit of time, and again, every one of their Warlords can benefit from that, because if there's something you couldn't quite kill this turn, you can stun it and hopefully get something to deal with it next turn. The Raven Guard have quite a fair bit of random or area damage effects. So for example, you've got Curse of the Raven, you've got Fury from Above, you've got, where's it gone down here? Guerrilla Warfare. So being able to stun a unit until one of those effects can take it out can be very helpful. Space Wolves are up next. We're looking at their counterattack. Is heal 2 to a friendly unit. So this is what I consider the baseline for a counterattack because it helps to compensate for the damage you would take by going second from the first troop or unit or attack the enemy Warlord makes. So I actually consider this to be a pretty handy one. You'll probably end up using this on your Warlord, although there's other scenarios where this can be great. For example, if you've played, where are these guys gone? Jortan Stalker Squad on the board, the enemy damage them once so that their Bloodthirst will only allow them to make one more attack and then they'll die. Like if they're on 1 health or 2 health, you could use that counterattack to heal these guys back up and actually do their full 2 attacks. So it's a good card with a lot of flexibility. I actually rate the Space Wolves counterattack to be one of the better ones. Custodes we saw before, oops, not lightning blow, counterattack, give +1 to your warlord this turn. This one is absolutely fantastic if you're Amon Taramakian with first strike, Aracid Nassau with first strike, or you're Constantine Valdor where you need to kill units in order to help with your reckoning. However, if you're playing as Vetranio Shapura, that counterattack does not really do much for you because you're probably not trying to attack things with your warlord. You're trying to just turtle up with shield and front line. So for the Custodes, it's a great counterattack for 3 out of 4 warlords, and it's really subpar and possibly even the worst counterattack if you're Vetranio Shapura. Ultramarines are up next. Very handy counterattack, super flexible. I actually think there's a lot of ways you could play this. It's just not as good as at healing as the Space Wolves one, and it's not as good as at damaging as... Actually, we haven't seen too many damage ones. I think the Iron Warriors can do more damage in total. But yeah, it's a great card. I rate this one as being pretty strong. Orphans of War, and I haven't seen their counterattack. What was their one? Deal 1 damage to an enemy. If it survives, refill 1 energy. Oh, wow. This is very strong. It both refills your energy and it does damage. This is excellent. I mean, the Orphans of War tend to have a pretty aggressive style, and that complements it perfectly. Blood Angels are up next. Their counterattack, put in play 2 unsettled populaces. Is that as pointless as I thought? Okay, alright, I see the logic there. The Blood Angel's counterattack is fantastic if you're Sanguinius. Oh no, I see what it's for. It's there to trigger... Okay, I see what it works for. If you're Sanguinius, that counterattack is going to help you with your reckoning because it gives you 2 troops on the board, 2 infantry on the board, who will die very easily and reduce your reckoning cost. If you're playing as Raldoran, it actually doesn't do that much, except for being able to... You might be able to kill them yourselves and buff one of your units, but... I don't know, it's kind of lackluster for Raldoran. If you're Meros, it's great. It's going to be good for healing, or... yeah, basically, hopefully giving yourself +1 health. And then lastly, if you're Ascalian, it's a little bit pointless. So the Blood Angels one is great for Sanguinius, it's okay for Meros, it's just below okay for Alderon, and it does nothing for Ascalian. So because of that, I mean, the Blood Angels one is very, very so-so, unless you're Sanguinius, in which case you love this. Well, I mean, I guess even apart from that, it does give you extra units on the board. You'll probably want to play it early game when there's not much the enemy can do to kill them easily. I don't know, I just think it's kind of average overall. Lastly, the White Scars. I haven't seen their one before. What is it? It is... Okay, give +1 attack to a friendly unit this turn. That's actually pretty good in general. They have warlords with great personal abilities as well as a lot of troops with flank. So if you're Jagatai Khan, you're going to love that because it's going to allow you to kill a 3 health unit pretty easily in your second turn. Remember, he starts off on 1 energy even though he's very high initiative. So it helps to compensate a little bit for Jagatai going effectively second. I mean, his first turn with proper amounts of energy is always going to be as a second warlord. Oh no, wait! Jagatai is never going to get the counterattack unless you're up against another Jagatai or an assassin. So it doesn't really help him that much. Okay, well anyway, so we're not going to talk about Jagatai. For Kinza, it's not that great unless you're playing an aggressive style. I guess it gives you some options if you're playing it on your warlord, but with Kinza you probably want to play it on one of your troops. Lots of troops in the White Scars deck with fast or flank effects, so that counterattack is going to be great at helping them to punch a little bit above their weight for a turn. Same thing applies to Yasugai, he's going to use that on troops. And we haven't got the latest White Scars warlord in the game. I think it's going to be Hansu, but yeah, we'll see how that works out with him. So that's the Loyalist legions. Let's look at the traitor ones. So in my preview video, I looked at the Sons of Horus. Really excellent ability, just like the coin from that other popular game. And what this allows you to do is gain one more point of energy temporarily this turn, and that can push you above your limit and allow you to play more expensive cards than normal. Really, really good. You'll be able to handle almost any situation where you go second. This might actually make Abaddon a little bit more attractive, because right now Loken, Horus, and Tarek are all high initiative warlords, but Abaddon was the only Sons of Horus warlord who was medium initiative, and with that change he might become a bit more popular because you can compensate for going second more. World Eaters are up next, and let's take a look down there. Their counterattack is deal 1 damage to a damaged unit. It's not bad. I mean, if you imagine how absolutely popular Strike and Fade always was, that is going to help finish off units which have been damaged with the Strike and Fade. Or the other thing it does is it combos very well. The World Eaters have a couple of legendaries who you always want to attack yourself. So that is Wrath and Argus Brond. So even if you're playing and putting them on the board, you usually want to attack them to trigger their rage abilities. And the traditional way of doing it was hoping that you had a Strike and Fade ready when they hit the board. Now, or ideally 2 Strike and Fades. Now, if you have a Strike and Fade and you hit the unit once, you can also hit it while it's damaged with counterattack, and that's going to trigger its rage a second time. So that is a very, very good counterattack for the World Eaters. I think, yeah, it fits them perfectly. It goes with their lore. It's a well above average card. I like this a lot. It's a very strong card for them, in fact. Emperor's Children are up next, and their one is interesting. Draw a card. Now, because card draws are usually a 2 energy ability, this is the only counterattack in the game which costs 1 energy. But there's a very good reason for that, and that is perfection. So the Emperor's Children have so many units which have perfection, and really what this counterattack is there to do is make it easier for you to get the right amount of energy to trigger perfection effects, as well as then being able to draw a card as a bonus from that. So because of that, I rate this as being a really strong counterattack as well, because it goes perfectly with the playstyle for the Legion. Death Guard's up next. A lot of people think this is underwhelming. Heal 2 to your Warlord. Honestly, what this means is the Death Guard counterattack will be used in your first turn, because you're going to hit whatever unit the enemy puts on the board and then heal up your damage. That's all. So I consider this to be not great, but it's not bad either. It's just the average ability. Iron Warriors are up next. So let's look at their counterattack. Deal 1 damage to all units in play. So just as like how I said, the Salamanders ability can potentially heal 7 points to your units, the Iron Warriors counterattack can potentially deal a whopping 7 points of damage for 0 energy. That is fine. That assumes the enemy has a full board, although it's going to damage anything you have as well. But of course, what this counterattack is there to really set up perfectly is a viral bomb attack as well. But the Iron Warriors have so many direct damage abilities as well that doing that 1 extra point of damage might be what you need just to finish off a target, set it up for a precision bombardment, and so on. So, and a very good card. I like it as a counterattack. Alpha Legion's up next. We have your next tactic this turn costs 1 less. So guys, do you remember when the Harrowing was nerfed and became a 9 cost card instead of an 8 cost card? If you're feeling nostalgic, you're going to sit on counterattack until your 8th energy turn and then harrow your enemies. Honestly, I like that. It does a good job of compensating for going second. The Alpha Legion have so many tactics in their deck, very important tactics. Everything from trap cards to secret orders to direct damage abilities. the Thunderhawk and so on. So you're going to be using a lot of tactics, and the counterattack will let you throw it out. But really, I think it's optimized for playing the Harrowing back at 8 energy. Night Lords are up. I haven't seen what theirs is. We have your Warlord gained sneak attack this turn. Okay, that's very good, because almost all the Night Lords, Warlords, except Mordrim, like to attack directly. Conrad Kurtz, of course, will be doing attacks. And so this compensates for when you don't have the energy to lower a unit's attack and then hit it. You can just use your counterattack for that instead. Very, very powerful. Malkarian's Battle Honor is very rarely used because you don't want him taking damage. But with that counterattack, it's going to become much more practical. So I think this will help Malkarian see more play, and also because he is one of the slower ones of the Night Lords, Warlords. So being able to get that counterattack benefit will, I think, make him more popular. And Sevatar, of course, does nothing but attack, so being able to counterattack and attack without taking damage is going to be a huge help for him. Well, sorry, I was wrong. Sevatar doesn't just do anything but attack, but it's relatively rare when you use his energy ability because he can't act again after that. 3 more to go. We have the Thousand Suns. So let's take a look. Their counterattack is give cannot attack to an enemy until your next turn. That's cool. I like it. It's very lore friendly because I guess it simulates the Thousand Suns using a psychic barrier or something to hold the enemy back. Yeah, I like it. It's maybe a little bit weaker than average because it doesn't do anything to get rid of that enemy unit. And so as a result, you probably want to sit on this one until late game when the enemy plays a powerful troop, and you can buy yourself a little bit more time to build up the psychic energy you need to kill it. Word Bearers we saw, it was one of the first ones revealed, and it's a pretty handy ability. Whoops, it's not Demonic Muscles, it's the counterattack. Your next troop this turn costs 1 less. So this is sort of like the Word Bearers equivalent to the Alpha Legion. The Alpha Legion made tactics cost 1 less. Word Bearers much more troop heavy. Your next troop costs 1 less. So yeah, I think that's going to give them a nice little edge in battle. And lastly, we have the Ruined Storm, already considered to be one of the most powerful factions. Their counterattack reflects that because it's just a simple deal 1 point of damage to an enemy and nothing else. So it's pretty average. It's going to help when you go second to weaken units so that you can hopefully kill them and catch up a bit more easily. So yeah, it's not bad. Alright, so that's all the counterattacks. They're all live in the game now, so every single match you play should have those. So yeah, go ahead guys, try them out. Let me know what you think. I will be playing quite a fair bit over this weekend, so I will hopefully get some content out there showing counterattacks. Alright, until we meet on the battlefield, bye for now everyone.